Well, I feel like I'm the third messenger. The message in music, which took me back to when I was a young man, and even till Milwaukee Fest, where for the first time in my life I attended a concert where when Willie Nelson came out on the stage, all the girls in the front got up on their guys' shoulders and took their tops off. And then the 3-point, succinct, articulate, and compassionate announcement by Carrie. So this is kind of like an afterword. Yesterday, we took Aunt Betty's clean laundry back to her at the Woodland Towers. And while my wife, her niece, was speaking with her about some of her needs, I picked up the famous local newspaper, The Beacon, and looked in it to see what I was supposed to talk about today. And I found out that I was going to ask the question, is a new UU narrative needed? And I immediately paused and said, what were you thinking about when you brought that up? Because if audacity is anything, it is what I am about to do as a OWBM. It doesn't sound like much, but it means old, white, Baptist male. And then I paused and said, well, it's advertised, I have to go through with it. And then I reminded myself that I took into my class last week the soon-to-be famous Mosaic UU cookbook and opened it to the page where I was published and told them I was putting it on my faculty activity report. Tangy green beans, which I aim to do this afternoon. My mom's coming over for dinner. But then seriously, I know why I thought about this. Because I think we have learned that the polity and the orientation of some of the Baptist brethren is not far away from a lot of UU thinking. Soul liberty is a Baptist principle. Nobody tells you what to believe. It's between you and God. We freely gather together. We, Baptists, are part of the free church, an idea that you embody. And there is no hierarchy, despite the fact that we have big-mouth preachers who act like they are the words of God. So, that having been said, it's still kind of audacious, and then the subject is iChurch, about which I am totally ignorant, except for your Frederick Mueller in this very wise article in one of my favorite publications, the UU World, made up this term. It's iChurch, the little I with a dot, church. And where did he get this from? Well, he took us back and gave his testimony. That's something we do as Baptists. He did. He talked about when he was a student at Yale and he heard Ralph Waldo Emerson's Divinity School address. And he was, as John Wesley once said, strangely moved. In fact, UU Pastor Mueller said that he had an epiphany. Well, that's what Jesus had, you know. So there's more similarity than you might think. And he said that everything that Emerson spoke about was like he was speaking to him. And he had what some would call an aha moment. A ding, something hit you. Something spoke to you. You have found something, or it has found you. And after hearing this message, the student, now Pastor Muir, said, "What religion was Emerson?" And he was told, Unitarian-Universalist. Now, I don't think that's exactly what he was told. He was told Unitarian, but we can redact that for those of you who have ears to hear. It says he's a Unitarian-Universalist, and Emerson said, "That's what I am too." So, he said that was the beginning of his understanding that UUs had the concept of iChurch. If there's anything, he said, that was defining and important for UUs, it is that you are an individual with individual rights, and you have the responsibility of working out, as St. Paul would say, in fear and trembling, your own life and your own destiny. It's yours to decide upon. No matter what you have been given, no matter what you have been taught, no matter what you have or don't have, you are the one. This is not far from the whole idea of listening to your heart, of setting yourself aside to think about it and listening to your own thoughts. It is what many of us will remember, the mantra of following your own bliss. And for some, and this was my deal, hearing the voice of God, strange as that sounds. And the whole object is to find yourself. And what Muir says is that this is an indispensable part of the UU tradition. And he puts it this way. I know he puts it this way, and I have it marked. You want to find it for me? I think it's up here. I'm going to skip it. Okay. This is what my students do, and I am so thankful. At 70, I forget a lot of stuff. I get to point 3, and I have somebody sitting out there, and Dr. Musser. iChurch, iPad. All right. Now, this article that this talk is based on is an article that brings up a problem with all this. Because he says, for all its appeal and influence in American culture, individualism is not sustaining. That the individual is the key, but it doesn't end there. Turning inward is important. Meditating is important. Doing yoga, Tai Chi, having a quiet time. Traveling the globe alone. Going to the mountaintop. Going to the woods. Me, back home in an hour to 120 azalea bushes bursting into bloom. And you find yourself. You renew yourself. But it is not sustainable. And he refers then to what must be held in tension with this strong individualism, and that is the whole idea of covenant, of community, where we promise to one another mutual respect and support which is another way of putting we congregate. We are not alone. We join together in a covenantal, a committed relationship to others who have also had these moments and heard the voice speaking to you, a common voice, and you join together as brothers and sisters in what is Black History Month. Martin Luther King Jr. called the beloved community. Now there's a footnote to that, 2 footnotes. Let's remember, Martin Luther King Jr. was a Baptist. One for us. And the other thing is that King didn't make this up. He got it from one of the people he read and had aha moments about, a philosopher by the name of Josiah Royce, who was a lapsed Baptist. So I don't know whether I should count him or not. Although most of my Baptist brethren think that I fit the category of being lapsed. At least I haven't had a relapse. That's an inside one too. I had a clear PET scan last Friday. That means I can live 6 months before I have to worry about having another scan. But that's another situation. All right, so here we have, this is what's in tension. What's in tension is Aristotle, and this is, and I'm trying to image this. Here's Aristotle. The thinker. You think, you get these ideas. And the other picture juxtaposed to it is the coven of 13 pagans decked out in pastels with flyers and balloons and little children dancing in a circle holding hands. The clear thinking and the joyous community celebration of life. Now, you can read this, but Muir goes into 2 problems, and every religious congregation and community and denomination I know of has a tendency to do this, and that is think of themselves as exceptional. Now, speaking as an outsider, you are not in that category. You have been so accepting of the strangeness that I bring to this pulpit that it is remarkable to me. But look, I grew up with being in an exceptionalist faith tradition, one that has spiritual haughtiness associated with it, with a we are right, and the others aren't necessarily wrong, but we're more right. We're more correct. We are more spiritual. Now you kick in a few other things. As an outsider, this is some of the perceptions of you use. Intelligent, educated, intellectual, who have the New Yorker, the Atlantic, the New York Times, Forbes, and the Economist on the reading table at home. Who degrade, without saying it, but meaning it, degrade creationists, miracle workers, faith healers, and anything that dabbles in the kind of weird supernatural apart from the intelligent scientific approach. There is a sense in which outside that is a problem. And it took me a long time to overcome this. First invitation I had to speak at Church was about 15 years before I accepted an invitation. And that was at Community in New Smyrna Beach. Because when you're told, now we need to understand, we would like you to come, but you need to understand we're a liberal community. Well, damn, man, I've been a liberal for a long time. Who are you talking to? Feel like you're a Baptist, we don't want to hear that sort of thing. They didn't know that Hal Marchman was my mentor. The other problem is the allergy. Muir says that we individualists have power and authority. We think for ourselves. We've got an ethical basis, but you know, the one thing that a lot of us like about the pagans is they got one ethical principle and everything else revolves around that. Nobody tells us when. Hey, we don't have to come here, right? We're free to come. We're not under any obligation. And so the idea of community and gathering and making decisions together and taking action together is something that is difficult for individualists to learn how to do. So in conclusion, there are these moments of coming to understanding that there's something out there that appeals to me, that speaks to me, that is energizing for me. There are these times of self-realization, like Pastor Muir had. And we are unique. Each of us is unique. We all have dissimilar DNA, to put it in biological terms. But that very often can be seen as exceptional. You know, if you have the family genes that you can trace back to famous people and so on, so you get this idea. Or if you have a pointy-headed education, or if you're a member of Mensa and you are legitimately smarter than all the rest of us, and you can become haughty about it. So what we need to do, I think, is become like Martin Buber, who's neither Baptist nor Unitarian. He is Jewish, who wrote a book about I and how important the I was, and having an I, and having an ego where you don't feel all bad about yourself, and the thou, and to come together, and I and thou. And I have figured out what we could do with this iChurch thing. Now, vision, I need a PowerPoint for this one to say. It's a little I church, but what it really is, it is the little I, and the C-A-U, it is the little I, and you, and the R. I and you are church. And we are to embody the sense of identity and meaning in life together. So in closing, what is a new UU narrative story? What's a new narrative story for any group that is holding their own but not flourishing as they could? What is a new narrative for Baptists, for Catholics, for you name it? What's the new narrative for you and me? What are we going to do when we retire? You need a new narrative. So, the last thing in the world I'm going to suggest is what that narrative is. Because, hey, you all are individuals in covenant with one another. So, work it out. In fear and trembling. In a renewed energy. Stoked by your spiritual awakening and understanding. And in a community of respect and care. And as we say, amen. And I will see you again on St. Patrick's Day. And I'll be not wearing my Nigerian shirt for Black History Month. I'm going to be wearing Green.